All right. Thank you all for joining. I know it's the post-lunch hour, so hopefully you got some good food, but hopefully you got some coffee in you as well. We're going to have a really great talk today. Here in just a few minutes, David's going to come up. David Terabesi from Nissan is going to come up and talk a little bit about the journey that they've been on in Gen AI with Snowflake. But first, my name is Chase Ginther. I'm one of our AI solution architect leaders here at Snowflake. Work really closely with our product and engineering team in bringing all of our AI and machine learning features to market, working closely with our customers like Nissan, and really developing key partnerships and helping them bring Gen AI to life in production. And that's what we're going to be sharing a little bit with you all today. So just for the agenda, I want to give some context on what Snowflake is doing in the Gen AI space, how we're enabling customers to build Gen AI solutions and applications, both conversational, interactive applications, as well as what we call natural language processing apps as well. And we'll define that a little bit more shortly. And then we're going to really talk about, from a business context, what Nissan has done, what they've adopted, and how they've brought this use case to life as they started their Gen AI journey. So generative AI, obviously, you've heard a lot about it, not just over the last week, over the last 24 months. It is changing how we consume and interact with data. Of course, there has been tons and tons of focus on how you can chat and interact with all different types of data, whether that's structured data, how you can take natural language and generate a SQL query, and now you can query your structured data with natural language. That's a really exciting concept that we're working on here at Snowflake. Of course, then there's more traditional RAG pipelines doing unstructured document search across different knowledge bases that you may configure. But also, what I am particularly passionate about and what we're going to talk about here today with Nissan is I think the Gen AI use cases that aren't getting enough publicity, frankly, out there in the market, which is how can we analyze documents, summarize calls, summarize customer interactions and feedback, and do extraction in maybe what's more of a more traditional batch processing pipeline, what would have traditionally been a large NLP project that would have been a custom data science project that would have taken months. Those sorts of projects have been greatly accelerated with large language models, and that's something we're going to talk a little bit further about. But again, just to introduce Snowflake, I think I talked to many customers across the industry, many individuals that frankly still don't know Snowflake as an AI company. And that has greatly changed over the last 12 months. We have built a unified platform for end-to-end, both generative AI as well as machine learning, with a couple key principles. First and foremost, we really focus on making AI and machine learning easy. So we have a fully managed and tightly integrated infrastructure. We both make our AI and machine learning features accessible via interfaces such as SQL, which of course something that is very close to our hearts at Snowflake, very close to the developers that use Snowflake, very familiar with many individuals. So it's a very low technical barrier to entry. But we also make all of our features and interfaces available in things like Python and REST for more advanced developers. Snowflake is also efficient. So one thing that you're going to hear a lot about today is how we can help customers get quicker time to value. And a lot of that comes from being able to build your AI and machine learning stacks where your data sits. Right? When you can directly build on top of your existing data estate, you can orchestrate your processes on top of your existing data estate, which we're going to talk more about that in just a second. You can get up and running and more quickly iterate and get to production a lot faster versus trying to manage exfiltrating data and egressing data from your data platform to a separate environment for development. And that brings me to my third point, which is trusted. Right? When you can govern both your data and your models with an existing role-based access control platform directly within one ecosystem, that brings a lot of trust and governance and a lot of synergy there as well. Specifically for Cortex and on the generative AI front, we starting at the bottom of this diagram and working our way up. We host a number of models available directly inside of Snowflake. They're hosted natively within our infrastructure. They are our general purpose completion API with many of the leading large language model developers hosted directly in Snowflake. So things like AI21 Labs, things like Meta, things like Mistral. We're one of the key launch partners with Llama 3.2. All of those hosted natively within Snowflake's infrastructure. You can even fine-tune those models with our serverless fine-tuning feature. Right, so as a base layer of our AI capabilities in Snowflake, these are available out of the box directly within the platform via either simple SQL calls, which we'll hear a little bit about how Nissan leveraged that, as well as things like our REST API. Working up the stack for different use cases, we have other features available as well, such as our Cortex Analyst feature, which allows you to do natural language to SQL generation. It is a managed service engine that is, behind the scenes, an agentic system that does this natural language to SQL translation, and it's exposed via a REST API so that you can build natural conversational applications for your end business users. Right? You can take that and deploy that into any app that you want to build and expose. And then on the right side of this diagram, we have our feature called Cortex Search. This allows you to get up and running and build unstructured data RAG application pipelines very quickly and easily with just very simple SQL syntax to define a target source table of your unstructured data, and then automatically make that available for retrieval with some industry-leading hybrid retrieval techniques. And on top of all that, we are increasingly thinking about the future of agentic systems and orchestration, and that's what has led us to the introduction of our chat API service, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago in preview. So we're very excited about the future of building agentic applications on top of this entire stack that I just discussed. But I want to talk, again, a little bit more about something that I think is greatly underappreciated in the industry, which is what generative AI and large language models has done to what we would have traditionally thought about as natural language processing. What used to be, again, an entire data science team's project to think about how you could extract key terms, how you could do sentiment extraction from text data, is now incredibly easy with LLMs. And there's ways to go in and modernize existing use cases where that may be deployed, as well as go build out new use cases to extract the sorts of information from that text data. These sorts of use cases look like call center transcript analysis. They look like generating summaries from maybe sales teams' interactions or customer feedback, right, in the case of what you're going to hear a little bit about later. Snowflake has become a very key platform for being able to do this, and a lot of our customers increasingly are thinking of Snowflake as the leading platform to build these sorts of use cases out. And again, a lot of it comes from how easy it is to use. It's as simple as you can define a simple SQL statement like I have on the screen here, pick your foundational model of choice, and then define your prompt and your target source table, and you're off and running. You can then take, when you're ready for production, you can then take this SQL statement, and then you can integrate that into your orchestration tool of choice, whether that's dbt or Airflow, or insert your favorite orchestration tool, right? So the alternative, though, is doing something like this. The alternative is you may have text data inside of Snowflake, and you may have to extract that out, dump that into object storage. But that exposes a lot of challenges, right? It exposes challenges. How do you consistently govern access across that data when it was already inside of your data platform, and now you're dumping that to an object storage where you lose some of that fine-grained role-based access control policies? How are you managing permissions on that potential object storage? How are you orchestrating that across these two different systems? What compute platform are you going to use? Instead, the architecture that we've been utilizing with our customers, and you'll hear more about in just a minute with David, is something that looks like this, which is I take my text data and I put that into maybe a data lake for staging, and then I may put this through a traditional data engineering pipeline in a generalized form, looks something like I have on the screen here, but you have an initial staging, and then you have some sort of transform stage, and then you have a final conformed predictions. And through this process, it's very easy to inject large language models, right? It's very easy to take that SQL statement that I had just on the screen a few minutes ago and put that inside of these pipelines, again, inside of your favorite orchestration tool of choice. And again, the key benefit here is you are governing this data across the entire pipeline within this platform, all the way from raw to that final prediction layer that is then exposed to your end consumers. So again, this is something we're very excited about here at Snowflake. Again, I think it's something that is under-talked about in the industry. We're all very focused on chat experiences. And so I'm excited to welcome my friend David up to the stage to come and talk a little bit about how this particular pipeline and everything that they've done there in the automotive industry and what they've been able to do. So I'm going to welcome up David Terabesi to the stage.
Great job. Hey, good afternoon. My name is David Terabesi. I'm the Digital Transformation and Consumer Insights Lead at Nissan North America. Great to be with you today. First time at reInvent. Any other first-timers here? Wow, yeah, a lot of people. Huge in scale, right? I know you have lots of choices, lots of sessions to attend, and you came here. I appreciate that. Appreciate the time and the attendance. Try to make this worth your while. And today the story starts kind of in the change in the auto industry, right? It may sound like hyperbole, but it's not. Over the last 5 years, the amount of change, the level of change has been greater than the last 20 years combined. And you say, well, how could that be? Things like electrification, right? Changes in propulsion systems, autonomous drive, semi-autonomous drive, digital transformation, connectivity, the way you interact with your vehicle. Massive shifts, all underway in the industry now. We'll give you a glimpse into that in the start. Then we're going to talk about the changing role of consumer insights and how we can help navigate those turbulent waters. Next is a look at the use case using Cortex AI and what we've been able to do with online consumer reviews to unlock the power of organic customer voice. Right? If you think of the organic voice, it's the unprompted voice. It's what's near and dear to the hearts of consumers. We like to call that the gold mine of consumer insights. Then we'll talk about the Snowflake impact, how that's worked out for us at Nissan, what we like about Cortex, the efficiency, the ease of use, the kind of intuitive interface. Before we get there, I'll give you a little bit of a flyover of my background and how it pertains to this current job, what I do now. And it starts with product planning. How many people in product development out in the audience? Yeah, not too many actually on that one. So I thought there would be a few over there. But product planners know that it's about taking the idea to reality, right? And one of the things we look at always is the customer, who's going to buy this vehicle, this product, why are they going to buy, what's the reason to buy? And when you start thinking of reasons to buy, we start to think of consumer needs. We think of that in sort of 3 vectors, 3 levels. The functional need of the vehicle, right? What's the use case for, say, a 3-row SUV? What are the functions that needs to perform, it needs to do? Then the emotional needs, right? How does it make you feel? Does this vehicle make you feel relaxed, secure, excited? What is the vehicle doing for the customer emotionally? And then third, the unmet need, right? Sort of an area that's ripe for innovation, needs that are out there that are not being met by other products. And we take a hard look at it and say, what can we do in that space? And the product planner then translates those needs into a vehicle concept. You can think about the key attractors of the vehicle, what's going to grab your attention and get you interested. And then you think about the unique selling point. As you're looking, as you're attracted, as you're getting familiar with the vehicle, what's the special sauce that's going to make you buy, that's going to say, hey, this is worthy of my purchase? So in short, that's what the product planner does. And as a product planner, you work closely with consumer data. And I got really interested in consumer psychology, how people make decisions. So I started working in market intelligence, consumer insights, designing the research, executing the research, going deep into the needs of the consumer. And that has great applications for product development, product planning, but also marketing. And I kind of turned my focus to communication, communicating effectively with our customers building the best creatives, things like ad concept testing, in-market testing, ad research, media planning, right? What's the way we can get the biggest bang for our advertising dollar? And then brand strategy. So kind of taking all that together, I was asked to lead this digital transformation team in insights, supporting product planning, marketing, and saying, how can we boost revenue opportunities, reduce costs, move faster, make decisions more efficiently through data products. And data is key, right? We know that. We talked about the disruption in the industry. And this is an important slide for us. Several years ago, we used this in the company with the highest level of executives to kind of put a stake in the ground. To say, hey, look, things are changing. The future of this business is no longer just about vehicles, just about cars. It's about data. It's about data. And we need to pivot. We need to start looking at that digital customer experience, how we can enable that, how we can unlock that experience. And that's the vector where we're going to win in the future. And we like to say if data is the new oil, as this cartoon points out from The Economist, saying it's the most valuable commodity, right? And I know that's not a perfect analogy for some data professionals, but as the most valuable commodity, I think it works really well. And we say insight is the new currency, right? If data is the new oil, insight's the new currency. Insight enables action. Ways to increase loyalty, ways to increase conquest, upselling opportunities. It's really almost limitless with the amount of data we have today and the tools we have to unlock that value. So change with data, a change in our focus, and a change in the competitive landscape. Traditional OEMs, Nissan, Toyota, Ford, General Motors, companies you know very well, plus these new digital native automakers, Rivian, Lucid, Tesla, and a host of new mobility providers. Whisk Flying Taxi, Uber, Lyft, Bird scooters, all kinds of choices for consumers. And when you have choice, you have noise in the market, right? It's more important now than ever to stand out. And that's where market intelligence comes into the picture. How can we develop a value proposition that's meaningful, different, and salient, one that stands out in the marketplace? Makes our value very clear to consumers. And that brings us to the market intelligence vision, right? It's about, in the past, traditional market research, conducting research milestones, answering ad hoc questions, car clinics, all those good things to develop that rich customer profile. Today and tomorrow, it's really about delivering prescriptive solutions, right? How do we get the biggest return on investment for the business, for the consumer, using that unstructured data, using consumer insights from unstructured data, behavioral data, user data, really powerful stuff. And one of the ways we do that is through the Always-On Insights platform. It's basically building an MI data lake, market intelligence, consumer insight data, traditional connected car data, vehicle probe data, and online data. Taking that into our cloud, our data lake, and developing data apps, dashboards that can help us get instantaneous feedback on the product, make the product better, early problem detection and easy, seamless resolution before the consumers are impacted by that. Building a customer-centric culture, really, really focused on the voice of the customer. We have 3 strategic pillars: visualize, predict, transform. Visualize, pretty basic, self-explanatory, making the data we have easily consumable, easily accessible. And then we think about predict, right? So let's take a real-life example. Interest rates. Interest has been up. What does that do to the mix of vehicles in the market? Does that shift from medium SUVs to smaller SUVs to fuel-efficient cars? How does that impact the business? So we can simulate that with some of the tools we've developed. And then finally, transform. It's unlocking new insight, new value from existing and new data sources using tools like Cortex AI, LLMs, other generative AI applications. And that's the use case for today, right? Improving customer experience, CX, with unstructured data. So you can look at surveys. We use surveys for a lot of things, useful. They answer specific questions, prompted questions. They give you some easily quantifiable, comparable results. But they miss the nuance. They miss the feeling, the deep emotion that people have. And if you think of yourselves, busy professionals, busy lives, relationships, all kinds of things going on, if you take the time to write a comment about a product or service experience, it's meaningful to you, right? There's passion behind that. We want to tap into that passion. We want to understand it, whether it's positive or negative, and boost the level of consumer experience for our brand, for our dealers, for our company, for our customers. And this is where we come in with this data app. Building a data app that categorizes comments, measures sentiment, and provides benchmarking opportunities for new solutions to improve that customer experience. And with Cortex, we've been able to categorize millions and millions of reviews into 3 broad categories with an 87% accuracy rate, something that was not possible for us even 2 years ago. Very manual work, sorting through verbatims, can't handle large volumes, but with generative AI, we can do that. And within each of those categories, we have roughly 10 attributes. We see some of those attributes there, like sales staff. We see negotiation process. We see transparency. We can measure the net positive sentiment. We can understand how the customer's feeling. We can tap into that emotion. And we can think about what we can do to improve it, how we can replicate those good feelings. And that brings us to business impact. It's benchmarking. Benchmarking at the brand level, at the dealer level, across the industry, at nation, within a region, within a DMA. Lots of insights that we can draw here. And we can take those high-performing dealerships and say, okay, what are the drivers of their success? What's the relationship from an attribute level to those 5-star reviews? And we can make action plans. We make strategies on how to boost the level of customer experience at our stores. So really impactful, really powerful stuff. Sort of think of this as the customer journey directly from the customers. And how do we get there? It all starts with the data acquisition. Nice diagram here from our partners at CGI, talking about how we ingest that data, doing it with Amazon Cloud into some S3 buckets before complete ingestion. Once we ingest, archiving that data for lower cost effectiveness. And all this is triggered through load data lambda using Snowflake Snowpipe. Nice partnership between the 2 platforms. It's been really effective for us at Nissan. And then the Snowflake Cortex AI platform, and you can see that the data ingestion, the calculation that's taking place, sentiment analysis, categorization. And then the great part is really in the middle. You can sort of see that box, the simple SQL prompt, very easy to use, very effective, adds a lot of value. And we push that data into other tables and load Tableau dashboards. And it's those dashboards that the analysts, the teams use to create action plans, action items, inform decision making. And Snowflake brings a lot of benefits, right, with Cortex AI platform, really in those platform impacts, implementation timelines. And what we like is the scale, can handle large data sets and do it quickly, efficiently. The user interface, very intuitive, very easy to use. And the idea of bringing compute to your data, right? We don't need extra infrastructure. We can do it right there in Snowflake, which helps us greatly reduce the timeline. So time to market for us was reduced by about 2 months. Got this in production 2 months faster, able to redeploy resources to other projects and start work on version 1.2. So lots of fun things, lots of capabilities, lots of LLMs to choose from in the platform, sentiment analysis, machine learning applications. And we're looking forward to our next steps. So online customer reviews 2.0, sort of using that conversational interface that Chase mentioned, specific questions, solutions to problems, comparison across dealers, across brands, easy summary of the information. Car feedback, right? So this is, you think about an auto company launching a new product, we want that instant feedback, and traditionally that would take us 4 to 6 months to do the after-launch review clinic. Today we can do that in about 1 week with online comments from experts, from journalists, from consumers using Cortex AI. We'll do something very similar with the organic brand tracker, and you think again about the language that consumers use to describe the vehicles, the brands. What is it? Is it stylish? Is it innovative, practical, reliable, safe? Right? How do consumers see the brand? And then you can overlay some of the ad campaigns, say, hey, with our messaging, are we seeing a lift in conversation around those attributes we want to focus on? So really powerful stuff. And a good example of one of the use cases is the new Nissan Kicks launch, model year 25 vehicle. And this is a summary from Cortex AI of about 4,500 comments. And you'll notice the detail, some of the attributes that the consumers love, some things they'd like to really hone in on. We can go back and re-prompt, right? So styling, what is it about the styling that stands out? What is it about the drive modes that stands out? Which drive mode's their favorite? And we can go deep on the level of insight you can get from online comments using Cortex AI, all of it in an efficient, capable platform. So yeah, Cortex AI has been a great aid for us, gathering insight, moving quickly, great user interface. And that at a time of change in the industry, a chance to really utilize that organic voice of the customer, tap it for new insights, and have an appreciable, immediate impact on the business. Thanks for your time.